Okay, good evening all, and welcome to the District Training Committee's second session or webinar. We are in for a really informative session this evening, so thanks everyone for making the time to share the information that's going to be presented. I will now hand over to DG Brian, who would share some welcome remarks. DG Brian.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for that, past AG Abe. And good evening, everyone. Well, welcome to what I believe is a topic of immense importance. Mental health with a special emphasis on suicide. Mental health and suicide touches the lives of countless individuals in our communities. And hopefully at the end of this evening's session, we will have explored the impact of mental health on our members, families, and our communities. And we will also have an opportunity. You just heard that the presenter prefers interaction. So hopefully we'll have an opportunity to discuss the pressing need for awareness, understanding, and action to promote mental well-being and avoid the impact, the effects of suicide. As District 7030, we are dedicated to the international focus of creating hope in the world, and addressing mental health issues is an important and integral part of our mission. As I'm sure many of you would be aware, a number of clubs, a number of countries have started and have initiated mental health discussions. You will remember that just over 2 weeks ago, the Rotary clubs of Barbados had a wonderful presentation, and other clubs throughout the district, including Rotaract clubs and Interact clubs, would have had similar conversations on mental health. As Rotarians, we are catalysts for positive change, and this evening's event is an opportunity for us as Rotarians to initiate positive change. So look forward. I'm sure the rest of you are as well. I'm looking forward to the presentation by Dr. Kenneth Niles, Assistant Governor, and I've had the opportunity to interact with Ken on a number of occasions before now, and I can assure you it will be an excellent session. So without taking up any more time, it is my pleasure to hand back over to you, Master of Ceremonies Abe, for continuation of the program. And to all participants, enjoy the session. I'm sure it will be a wonderful experience.
Good night again, everyone. Arista Jamari of the Rotary Satellite Club of St. Lucia Sunset. It's my honor this evening to introduce you to our guest speaker tonight. A Rotarian since 2011, AG Kenneth has served as president and held several chair positions. His classification is educator, and he has been an adjunct lecturer at the University of the West Indies and the University of the Southern Caribbean, where he had lectured in gerontology and psychology. With a passion for cooking, he satisfies his partner in service, Kalina, and family joyfully. This father and grandfather continues to foster goodwill as he creates hope in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, AG Kenneth Niles.
Well, it's great to be here on this platform, and I'm very happy to be invited by our district trainer leader, Leah Chatterton, and of course I bid welcome to our DG Brian Glasgow, and good to have you all other PGs and PGs, etc. It's a joy. Now, I am happy to do this, but I know some of you may not be happy to be here. This topic of suicide has so many reflections, and I'm going to start off as a good clinical person, one who is in the practice and in the field of counseling psychology. If you do have any triggers tonight, please, you can find me through Leo, through any of your AGs. They have my number, 682-8162, or you could find a psychologist. But usually, sometimes in times like these, we do have triggers, a memory coming up, a feeling, you feel depressed, you remember something about your loved one, this happened. So any triggers, don't feel bad about the triggers. If you start crying, that's okay. There's napkins in your house. If you feel to come out with a thing, but I want you to be free to know that this kind of topic does encourage that type of emotion tonight. And I empathize with you, and I hope that we will all work together for the better as we salute our RI President, Akanali, in his quest to alleviate and to bring more awareness of this great topic of suicide. How do we begin to establish that this word is real? How do we begin to say that, yes, suicide is something that I want to talk about? Most times we don't want to talk about it. Most times we are afraid that it might engender somebody to think negatively. We want to maybe not have them say certain words. But it's important to maybe identify some definitions. When we have suicide, the act of taking his own life, that's clear. But we are not talking tonight about the act, because we do not know about the act really. The act has so many dimensions. But I want to talk more about ideation, the fact that people are preparing to engage in plans to take one life. Active suicide ideation involves an existing wish to die accompanied by a plan of how to carry out the death. Or we have passive suicidal ideation involving a desire to die, but without a specific plan of carrying out the death. And we have people, there have been many people who may have thought about it but never planned. They are passive. They're active, people who have planned and tried, but they're still alive because they were able to be resuscitated or they were pumped out or they didn't take enough. So we have levels of this particular act. When we think about the journey of how this comes about, it's like a wow, you know, when we hear, wow, you did this. But these people may be having strange behaviors that you may not have even thought of. There's a space of oblivion. What's going on? In a person's mind, they're not too sure how to relate to themselves, to the environment. They're not sure how to talk. They're not sure how to be accepted. And they start doing things that are not connected to what we call their norm of behavior. They start doing things extremely, or there's at the other end, not extreme in terms of withdrawals or isolation. The times of misinterpretation. I'm not sure what to think. And when people say, what are you talking about? You stupid boy. We say, you're always dotish, and we throw words at them, not realizing that they are really having an issue about misinterpretation of language and of self. I'm not sure if they really belong here. And then there's the issues of misunderstanding. I can't tolerate this. I can't tolerate what's happening to me within my space. So one of the things I want you to begin to think about tonight is space, environment, where you are and with whom you are. And sometimes we do not know generally with whom we are. And I know that may sound strange, but I've had to work with parents whose child committed suicide. It's like, wow, but she lives in my house. But do we take time to really observe? We like to throw words. How are you going? You fine? We do not take time to hear answers. I was telling my wife the other day that you ask a question and you give the answer. How are you? You're good? So you give the person the question, how are you? And you give them the answer one time. So why should they talk? And we have to maybe help ourselves by, if we have to ask and answer, how are you? What are you experiencing? Shut up. Wait for the person to answer, because it's the person you want to help. And that's a cultural thing about us. We have to learn how to work that out. There are concepts and there are contexts. The concepts, of course, deal with family views. What do family view? How the family views about you, about a person? Do you like the person? Is the person fitted? Is the person not fitted? You know, I have a child, but I didn't expect the child to grow up that way. And we say these things. And by the way, I am a Frank. So all of us have to do what Frank does. Or I'm a Niles. And you expect everybody. So we have all these views, who to get married to, who not to get married to, which school to go to, what subject to take, what profession. And sometimes we throw these views without listening to the person to whom we are speaking. And there's a lot of pressure there. Community assumptions, of course. Hey, you know, she's a Dan Raj, you know, or she's a fox. So you know what you expect. Highfalutin. Oh, no matter whatever, you know, them people from grassroots don't even talk to. So we create cohorts of people's communities' expectations. And therefore, when I walk into a community, when I walk into the shop, or I walk into the barber shop, or I go to the park, or I even go to school, there's that type already segregation going on there, which encourages social implications. Where do I fit? So that you do not believe, you will not realize that suicide ideation or thoughts of not wanting to be here does not just happen sometimes in people's 30s or 40s. It started when they were even in kindergarten, or sometimes even at primary school. The mommy don't like me, she like my big sister, or I could never do anything right. That starts very early. And when we have those concepts thrown at our children and thrown at our friends, we have certain expectations. And the context comes out of the educational perspective, because everybody wants their child to be bright and to be somebody in society. So if you have a child growing up and all of a sudden the child becomes a gardener or a sanitation engineer, you know, collecting garbage, that is not a child. You make me shame. And and we have encouraged a lot of ideation from this thing we call, in Trinidad we call it SEA, some places common entrance. PEP. And some people have had to have, and I know in one particular country, some people have had to have psychologists, some children at 8 years, because they have 3 years, 3 years of this exam up to 11. And so that child is being pressured. They want to go. And by the way, the school could only take for the maximum maybe of 105 students. But you know, thousands want to go to that one school of the first choice. You know what's happening here. So when you get your second or third choice, you're not as good as to your parents. We have to be careful how we begin to forge the ambitions I want my child to, the accomplishments, the successes, the failures. All these things are what we have to look at. I remember telling my son once, he was doing woodwork as against his sister, who went to more other prestigious school, and she was doing chemistry and physics. I tell him, hold on, your woodwork book is more expensive than her chemistry book. So pride yourself that this subject has a lot of integrity. Don't look at her with her chemistry and physics book. Look at the fact that your book is more expensive. Therefore, there's value here. Learn to appreciate that you could handle woodwork. He was like, true. I said, yes. And so he started there, and I helped him to realize that whether you went to a 7-year school with prestige or you didn't go, you have value in what you think. So we have to watch these concepts. So we end up with our children in some room with a cat to play with who we can't really relate to, really. We could get a hug and some fur, but I want to be acknowledged. I want the journey continues. Yes, it's really happening. Me, what's going on here? What's happening with me? So I have to present issues here, dilemmas, family relation problems, you know, sibling rivalry, sibling identities, mother and father having their own problems, maybe ending up in divorce, intimate partner problems. I'm a child looking at them fighting and quarreling every day, abuse, neglect, arguments and conflicts, school issues, bullying, failures, death and loss of family members, use and exposure of social media. Of course, social media. As a psychologist, years ago, the AP in America told all psychologists do not have Facebook accounts. We would, because Facebook accounts had grown to be a lot of the issues that was creating suicide ideation and suicides and other disorders because of the way they were used. So up to now, I do not have a Facebook account. So we have to watch these presenting issues that are really around us. Remember, I said the key thing here is environment. Where do your 2 feet stand, and with whom are these feet standing? How do we relate to that? And I want to point out here two basic things. Not so much death and loss of family member, but how we really create the family relations. Because if I have a death, family is important. If I'm bullied, family is important. If I'm abused, family is important. So we are also looking at the family as a key instrument in terms of how we handle awareness and prevention. There are 4 types of suicides: egoistic, altruistic, atomic, fatalistic. The egoistic, of course, I'm very proud of what I do, how I do it, and please, if you come against that, I don't like myself. I'm not accepted, so there I go. I am really, really in a place where I am alone, and I have low social interaction because nobody likes me. So I pull away to myself, and I am there looking to maybe get rid of who I am. Altruistic suicides, when a social group involvement is too high. People expect, it's like a social construct concept, where everybody in a group expects you to be as good as them, and you want to pour out, and they're not accepting who you are. And so therefore, you find that there is that kind of fear, especially within religions or within cults, within those kind of fraternities, especially with fraternities, where you seem to be the outside person, and then you're trying to be somebody else. That is great. And so people like that end up being martyrs or being suicide bombers. They will say, okay, you don't listen to me. You don't recognize I can fit into your group. I will represent. So I will strap myself with a bomb and go out there and let you know that I really was somebody good. Anomic creates a low degree of regulation of this kind of suicide, which is one full of stress and frustration of oneself. Especially with people with financial issues, when you can't handle spending, you can't handle the constant lack, and you can't seem to keep up. Your rent is overdue, you're losing home, you're bankrupt. Those kinds of issues, when you are forced to realize that you can't seem to regulate what's happening with you, and you become very frustrated. Of course, fatalistic, of course, is when you are really at the point where you can't seem to keep the expectations that you have, and nobody seems to feel. You seem to be really not achieving anything. You're underachiever. You don't know who you are. You don't know where you're going. Perhaps it's time to get rid of myself, and there I go. So those are basically 4 types. You could look it up if you wish to get some more explanation there. But
Dr.
the barriers.
Excuse, yes? we have a question from the floor. And the question is, what is the benefits of regular therapy sessions on dealing with suicidal thoughts as a means of preventing acting on the thoughts?
But let me hold on to that question, please. Read the last part again, on the thoughts.
As a means of preventing acting on the thoughts.
Oh, acting on the thoughts. Now,
right.
As I said, we are looking at I want to go back here. We're looking at this word here, family. We're looking at the issue of environment. And I want us to see, yes, I appreciate the question. We're going to come to answer that question just now in its fullness in terms of therapy. But I want us to kind of trace a life, realizing that from the time the child is born, the child is in a space that needs to be protected by the people therein. Starting with parents, starting with siblings, starting with grandparents, aunts and uncles, and then we go into educational context of school teachers, and then so that how do we keep that child safe? So you can realize that if we could understand from this slide here alone, if we can work out family issues and work out and even look back here to understand the concepts that we're working with, family views, we can begin to see that we are really giving free therapy just from a family concept of learning how to embrace difference and not to attack it, even when it's in our very space. Because we are dealing with people who are coming out of a home into a wider space of school or work, not being able to handle the negativity that comes towards them. And that is something we have to look at very importantly. So clues to suicide. How do you know that they are close to suicide? What do you talk about suicide? We don't. Do we assess psychological intent? And even as that question bears, to come to a psychologist, one must understand that you need psychological help. But as a growing population, nobody wants to talk about suicide. It's like death. Nobody talks about death. Nobody talks about if I could happen. And if you see somebody very melancholy or depressed or withdrawn, you can say, see me mind nobody business. Me want nobody cuss me now. Me want nobody tell me nothing. So I better keep to myself. So the person's keeping to themselves and you keeping to yourself. So you understand? Nobody is willing to mind somebody else's business. You know that little thing we grew up with? Mind your own business. So we have been minding our own business so long, and the other person could commit suicide. And then we say, if I had only known, but you couldn't know because you're minding your own business. We have to learn to use the colloquial term macro. We have to learn to ask very direct questions. I see you haven't been talking. I recognize when you come to work, you sit by your desk, and sometimes I see you wiping your eyes. Are you free to talk about what you want, what's happening to you? Ask a question. Don't go and say, so, what up to you? You're so quiet. What are you teary something? Like you have to bank or what? Don't drop those silly remarks. You are encouraging negative emotion. So how do we understand suicide history? They may have a history in their family. You don't know. You see, and we are afraid to get into these topics because, again, we don't want to mind people's business. You see, that story that came from our RI president, McAnally, about his brother. People saw him, and as he said, people asking, so what's going on? Like, and nobody was really asking the right question. Tell me, why are you so sour? Or maybe why are you so depressed? Or what's happening? Are there problems in your home? I ask this question all the time to people around me. Some people say, boy, look, you're too fast. I say, let me be fast today to hear that you in hospital having drank some overdose of something. Where you get on with? I say, you see, you want to keep quiet, but then when you do it, it's trouble. And when you do it properly, it's more trouble. So we have to look for barriers, and we have to remember that we are our own concept. We have to have a concept of how to assess. And that may be another topic by itself where I can go through, but not tonight. That will take some time. But we need to be more open, what to look for, what to ask, how to investigate your friends without feeling that you are invasive. And that's the thing about it. You don't want to be invasive, but you have to find a way of how to work this. So the person, and we can get some things from this. My identity, who am I? Moods, temperament, feelings, emotions, decisions. Even as we sit on this platform, some of us need to ask, who am I? What kind of mood I have? I'm always temperamental. I come home, don't talk to me. You go to my room, you slam the door. You're hungry? Not now. I want to eat. Wake up. Look, come on my face. I know, long time, about a few years ago, we had the hand. Everybody was that hand. So that we created isolation. Sometimes we do not know how to express our feelings and our emotions, especially when there's a hurt, when a pain, especially when there's grief. And therefore, the decisions we are making are not always fruitful, not always positive, especially when the decisions are for isolation or for excessiveness. Like, I had a friend who would go out and say, let's drink. But the drinking, we learned later, was not just about drinking. It was building up a capacity to take an overdose. So if I could drink more tequilas and see how I stand, and then one day I could mix tequila with, or just take the drink. So because there was such a depression that until somebody found her drunk, and so drunk, and further than that, asked her question, and she got some therapy. So we have to recognize the decisions are not just fly by night. As I said, they are emanating from childhood sometimes, all the way. But when you see you are in a place within your grown life as an adult, and these things are there, even as a young adult, even as a teenager, especially for those who are between fourth form and upper six. And I've had clients where they were in their, especially in their upper six. And CAPE has not helped, because by the time you do CAPE 1, then you have to take CAPE 2. And I can tell you one thing. Let me interject this here. One of the clients I had got at CAPE 1, got a 1 in the subject. Oh, sorry, not CAPE, CXC. Got a 1, but didn't get 3 A's. Got 2 A's and a B. And that was pressure, because you know why? The school introduced distinction. There is no distinction in CXC profile. Teachers and principals and administration create that word distinction. So when everybody got a distinction, 3 A's, she got 2 A's and a B and wanted to end her life. Ends up in my office and tell her mother she have to repeat that subject, because she has to get the 3 A's to feel that she is a part of the class society. Right now, she's rejected. So we have to be careful what we expect our children in their accomplishments, because the decisions they choose, the emotions that they create, don't go well. So therefore, they become attached or detached, and detained. So detached, cognitive identity, they're not thinking. Thoughts and ideas. You see that particular student, she didn't know what's going on. How do I work this? How do I relate to this? What am I doing? We have to be careful. The thoughts and ideas that are in a person's head, those cognitive identities. When you see you hear something that goes through your ear, and it hits the occipital lobe, and it comes back down for the temporal and frontal, and by that time the amygdala is being reacted to flight, and the thalamus is being created. You are creating thoughts and ideas that are going to sink into the cerebellum and lock in for memory. You're going to feel very detached when you are only having negative issues. Are you following me? We have to understand. We have to understand people are looking for social identities, which has to do with relationships and friends. It is something we were born with. We cannot exist as an island. But how do we maintain these friendships? How do we maintain these relations? Depends on how we are treated. Therefore, when we are attached, and then when we detain in terms of disappointments and inefficacy, we don't feel good about ourselves. What you call low self-esteem, we call, I put out there for your sake, but for us as clinicians, we talk about lack of self-awareness, self-assurance, and therefore there's a withdrawal. And we have to be careful that we keep asking questions so that we are yet detached and detained. We are detained within this frame of disappointments. I can't see, I always disappoint people. So therefore, I feel disappointed. I feel like a no good shoe. I'm not good at these things, but you feel like a no good. You feel like nothing. And therefore, you can't rise up to be self-aware and to understand who you are. So therefore, you withdraw. So we have to be careful about that concept of disconnect, detach, and retain. Let's look at some symptoms here. Sometimes we obtain items that we need. We start collecting items. We start decreasing social contact. We start increasing drug. As my friend, as I told you about, start drinking more, withdrawing from one's pleasure activities, increase risky behavior. We start cutting, and that has its own thing that comes out of borderline personality disorder. When you start cutting and injuries from the past, suicidal attempts, and you have scars, you change your eating habits, you have chronic or terminal illness. People can't handle terminal illnesses. When a doctor comes to tell you have X amount of time to live, or you think the illness is going to kill you, and then of course environmental in context of paranoia, risky behavior, paranoia, and of course OCD. I could have put that there. OCD, when you're always trying to make everything right, and people disorder, and then you're always looking behind your shoulder. I remember doing a program on television, and the interviewer said to me, "Dr. Nice, hold on there." She said, "You're talking here about trauma, and I am seeing myself this morning walking from my house to get a transportation, public transportation, and looking back every 5 steps to see who was behind me." She said, "It's only after what I realized that what has happened in my neighborhood has affected me." So some people cannot live outside of their home or cannot live outside of a particular space because it's always unsafe. And so that you increase negativity. And therefore, sometimes people increase risky behaviors. They always want to do things that create somewhere where they could fall off a banister or do things haphazardly. And so we have to look for these signs. Are you looking out with your 2 big eyes or 2 small eyes, and to see if people are doing this? And if they're doing it, you still have to open your mouth and ask, why are you doing this? Is it the first time you attempted suicide? I have that on my intake form. Sometimes I see it blank. I go back to it and says, "I see you left this blank. Have you ever thought of this?" Pause. Okay, don't answer now. We get to that. Because that pause done answer the question already. And so that people sometimes are ashamed to tell you they have. But don't take that as a stopgap. Say, okay, let's talk about this another time. But between now and I leave you, you must give me one little something for me to hold on to so I can work with you. We have cognition, preoccupation with death and dying. Belief that dying by suicide is the only way to end the emotional pain. No, it's not the only end. We have the psychosocial context, feeling helpless, trapped by emotional pain, psychosis, self-loathing, hopelessness. No, this is not the end. And I know people who have been trapped by emotional pain, who can't seem to get over it, and they sometimes go to psychiatrists who give them medication, and the medication gives them more pain. The medication sometimes puts you into greater depression. If you look at the side effects, or depression, sleeplessness, fall asleep, lose loss of energy. So that you have to watch whether how you think and how you interact and how you feel comfortable. And this helplessness is attached, of course, to hopelessness. Is attached to self. They're all attached. But I think trapped by emotional pain is one of the hardest ones, I think, because you feel so hurt, and it is contingent on how you see relations. Because emotional pain has come out of how you decided daddy, mommy, whether you had a banker, whether you had a boyfriend who just left, or a wife or a spouse who cheated on you. And you can't seem to understand the why and what did I do to cause this? And you keep asking, what did I do? What did I do? That if you don't let go of that, that also creates opportunity for suicide. So we have to watch these very important factors as we go along. I want to put this in here. This was a thought that late thought that I thought I didn't have it in, but I said, let me put it in, because I think we could begin to do some self-awareness here. Have you ever wished you were dead? It's a non-verbal morbid ideation, you know. And by the way, parents tell their children that, I wish I didn't have you. I'm about to cry here. This is my second time for crying today, but I'm thinking of a particular friend of mine who I spoke with. She's not ideation. There's no ideation there, but she had to overcome the thought of hearing from her mother that I wish I could have taken my life just knowing I was pregnant with you. And some people go through life like that. You know that your mother or father didn't want you. You know your father, your mother tried to abort you. So from then, and one of the things I've also had to learn, I've had to work with women who have been raped. That is a key suicidal indicator, because rape brings you to as if you were a sacrifice. You were helpless, like a helpless animal on an altar, and this person comes and just takes what he wants from you. So that kind of lack of control, when you come off that altar and you're still alive, you can never seem to see yourself ever gaining strength to be somebody. And I've had to work. I've had a seminar on that once, just dealing with women who have been sexually abused, and that kind of emotion that brings them to that hopelessness of life. Have you ever felt that you or your friends or your family would be better off if you were dead? Those are real questions. Have you ever thought about killing yourself? Do you intend to kill yourself? Have you ever tried to kill yourself? And these are real. I don't want you to have, as I said today, if you have any triggers, you could come off or send me a note after, or get a number, because we need to be honest about, parents. I remember once as a parent, I said, my gosh, I can't handle this stuff. And my children weren't excessive in terms of behavior. It's just that sometimes, especially when they want a particular shoe, they want a Nike. I'm not wearing it. I want an Adidas. I want this. I want that. I can't afford. Daddy, if you don't give me, I say, Lord Jesus, look, you see you? Look. And some of the thought flashes throw it away. What I do with you? You know, that kind of thought? You have to think, okay, get rid of it, get rid of it. Because sometimes we're aggravated by a boss who decides, look, I have had enough of this boss. You can't get a change of your job. So it's better I just get out of here. So we have to do some self-screening. And we have to look at this context of effect and effect. The effects of all this, like the self-screening and even looking at the signs, it comes back to the sadness, the confusion, withdrawal, isolation, silence, preoccupied, private, deceptive. Have you felt that way, or do you see that around your environment? But again, as I said, we're dealing with one major thing: environment. The second thing is family. The third thing now would be you to mind somebody's business. When you see somebody sad and confused and withdrawn, you say, hey, what's going on here? Okay, preoccupied, always dreaming, daydreaming. And they always want to be private. No, it's okay. I'm not going. When they're going home, they're not going out anywhere. Well, social interaction is important for intellectual stimulation, and they deceive sometimes what they do. The effect, they began to internally agonize themselves and come to severe injury. As I said, some people start cutting. Some people start deciding to starve themselves. They damage their organs. They might drink something, and then there's brain damage. There's brain death, there's seizures, coma, and of course, finally death. This is the effect of when you attempt any kind of suicide using any of the many things that may be around you that you think could work. The injury, the damage to organs. I worked with a lady who the doctor didn't realize her daughter, her organs were damaged until about the 4th day. By the 3rd day, she's feeling peppy and and we were looking at her. She had been in my council, and this is one of the cases I had lost. Was in my council, working with her. She came to a place where she thought that she wasn't needed anymore, and she drank a substance. And after a few days, she was doing fine. And then by the 5th day, they recognized her organs were damaged. And by the 7th, 8th day, she was gone, leaving behind 3 young children and a husband. Post-attempt, you and me. What, who, when, where, how, what. Do you notice anything about that slide there? I have went twice. Because why? I want you to engage in the concept I said just now, the environment. But in the environment, you want to know the when it happened, when it would happen. So even though I am family-based with my environment, there's still the concept of when. You do know when. You do not know when, therefore we have to be careful about our when. Therefore, we have to mind somebody's business. We have to be on the ball, looking out for our friends. So after they have had the attempt, and of course they are now in cure, that means they are in hospital or sometimes out of it. But after the attempt, there's hospitalization, there's pharmacology, there's a psychiatric evaluation, and there is psychotherapy or counseling, and there's family care, of course. Of course, the caution is for the person who did it: guilt, anger, shame, condemnation, and regret. Now, the question that was asked earlier, this is where it comes in, that question about what's happening here. Where is that question?
The question was, what is the benefit of regular therapy sessions on dealing with suicidal thoughts as a means of preventing acting on the thoughts?
Now, when you look at this question, you want to find out if this question is a before or after. And why I brought it back up here is because when the person have had the experience of suicide ideation and attempt and lived, this is most times when they want to get the intervention after the fact rather than before the fact. Because the thing about it, people always feel okay. You see, when we talk about sadness and depression early on, and we are encouraged. Okay, don't bother. Come and go to us. No. Nobody can handle my stories. Nobody can handle what I'm going through. But when it happened, now you want help. So the question begs, yes, you need to have regular therapy sessions, but you need to first agree that you need the sessions. And the sessions are not dealing with the suicide. The sessions are dealing with the issue, so that you have to agree that you have a disorder that you want to be defined. You come to the therapist, there is the sessions, and there are the sessions, and whether it's going to be depression, borderline, bipolar, etc. We are dealing with that because that could be the root that we need to uproot to prevent you from suicide. There are other personality disorders that we may have to prevent. And some people are even when they are sexual disorders. I have bounced up a case while doing sex therapy with a gentleman who was at the verge. And it came out because we tied it into a 9-year-old when he was 9 and something, and he just blurted out something. I recognized that since then he did not want to be alive. And he became perversive, sexual perversive. And I was happy to have gone down that road, to go back and do some reflection there and get him to acknowledge that. So that we are not going to be, the question begs, yes, but we are not, you don't go to a therapist to deal with suicide. You go to a therapist with disorders that are the base of suicidal ideation. So that we hoping that while we go through, there are going to be moments when we are going to be able to help you to want to be happy, want to be inclusive, want to have that concept of assurance and self-awareness. Now, during the session, we may ask you, as I said in my intake form, have you ever thought of suicide? If you have thought of it, then we can shift a bit and bring you into the place and ask you if you would please want to share. We cannot force it out of you that occasion. If you share with us, fine. If you don't share with us, we can't force it out of you. So that's important to look at. Okay. Yeah. What steps can one take when they notice there is, do we leave? No, we don't leave the person alone. We reach out. Please, we reach out. As I said, we mind the business. Now, I want to come back to this caution. The guilt could push you back into feeling that you are, so that psychotherapy is very necessary after an attempt. You may go to a psychiatrist who basically is going to present you with medication to help you to see better if you sleep less or to be less depressed. But you really need a therapist to help you to diffuse the information within your own brain and those emotions to bring you back to that place of equilibrium and to come into that place where there's resilience. So you are removing from that catharsis concept and that very agonized, agitated, anxious place. We want to help you because the medication alone would not do it. I'm advocating here for psychologists and to realize that psychiatrists, yes, but psychotherapy or counseling is, especially with this word regret, I should not have. And of course, you want to know how daddy and mommy are handling you. We want to know about what's happening here. Are we overprotected? Are we the questioning, the mistrust, the counter-transfer? We want to be careful with that. When somebody has had an attempt, we want to make sure that we don't create guilt. You make me shame. Oh gosh. How's the child? Oh, she's fine. I heard your daughter what did you hear? Why hiding? If the child is dead, we'll have a big funeral, everybody will know. So that please do not encourage that person who has had an attempt to feel further guilt, anger, shame, condemn. Let's come into the place where we can alleviate the pressures of overprotection, excessive questioning, mistrust. We want you to have more of a relational concept. Am I going the wrong way? No, I'm going the right way. We wanted to make sure that there are possibilities that you may cover. There will be more depression. You might find this coming out of the postpartum. These are the things that creates a list of what creates the possibilities of I didn't realize, I forgot I had this list here, of suicide ideation. Depression, women who have had babies, they can't handle their babies, bipolar, borderline personality, anxiety, substance abuse, addiction, alcoholism, paranoia. So you have to help them. That's why I said, when they go for counseling, we are not dealing with suicide. We are dealing with any one of these that are the base of. So we want to have some bargaining, social control, compromise, compliance. We want to be able to handle that. Compliance means obedience. How do I do what is said to be done? But let's go to bargaining. What am I bargaining? And I put that there because I know it is something done, but I am careful with it. I don't want to make you want to do something that you do not want to do. Like if you do this, I will do that. If you behave a good girl, we will take you out. Oh, I want to make sure that if you come home late, sometimes we deal with adults. These are not children. So you have to be careful about bargaining, but people like to do it, I've been told. Social control, be careful of the control. You cannot be afraid that the person would always go back and repeat. You have to teach the person how to be self-assured. So there's some compromises in terms of what their ideas are and what my ideas are as parents, as guardians, as family. We come back to family and how we find the obedience in terms of how you fulfill my expectations. The other issue of assurance, build relationships. Be open, be transparent. Talk, trust each other. Don't argue. Don't feel that you're lying. No, you're not Rotary. You are really identifying what's up. Assessment, counseling, therapy, again, we want to establish that. And we want to establish the fact that there is reconciliation and there's transformation. We want to see change. Self-acceptance, knowing me, loving me. I want to know me, I want to love me. You want to know me, you need to love me. So I trust that we understanding. Again, it comes right back down to the family. It comes down to friends. It's not about you alone. So you will be asking the question, have I created opportunities for somebody to commit suicide? That may be a question in your mind. And the answer may be yes. But you see, that yes answer may be unknown to you. You may not have known. Because we are so flippant sometimes. We are so, especially as a Caribbean people, we like pecan. Look at you. Look at you. You always, so you're good for nothing. Wait, what school are you going to? That school? Oh gosh. You don't have a degree? We have to be careful how we create acceptance. So it comes down to the insurance in terms of trying to bargain and keep control and compromise, but it also mostly for the assurance of how we relate as family, as a person, and how we teach that person for self-acceptance. Thank you.
So, Dr. Niles, we have a question from the floor. It's a comment and a question embedded in. So maybe a time after someone has committed suicide, people would remark that the person seemed so happy and outgoing. What are the signs that one can possibly look for to detect that things may not be all right and intervene?
If I tell you, let's go to dinner, and I say to you, what do you want to eat? And you say, I'll have ribs and some fries. Do you know that immediately you start seeing ribs and fries? Do I have agreement here? Is that so? Yes? Show of hands, everybody agree with that? That immediately you start seeing ribs and hands, ribs and fries? If I say, I'm going to New York, immediately you start picturing, oh, streets busy, you start seeing something. Yeah? So when somebody tells you, I'm doing well, what are you seeing? What do you want to see? And sometimes, in terms of personalities, it is not as carte blanche as seeing a plate of ribs or seeing a macaroni pie or seeing a piece of chicken. You have to ask questions in order to see more clearly. And that's why I don't have many people, many friends, because people say, you see, when you ask a simple question like how you are, you give me a big discourse. Yes, because do you really want to know who I am? This morning a person called and said, how are you? I said, you don't really want to find out. That's just an introductory question. Next, she said, I said, I am overcoming joyously. Oh my gosh, I never heard that before. What do you say? You want me to say fine and go along? No, we have to be able to sense, what am I hearing when somebody say, I'm happy? Or when you see somebody, what makes you so happy? Tell me what's going on. Invite that person out to dinner. See how they eat. See how long they take to make up their mind. These things are real. We do not really care. Hurry up now, hurry up, you take it out with the menu. Because the person has a brain problem trying to decide what to take to make sure everything goes right. We like everything to go right. But even on this platform, we want everything to go right. If anything go wrong, you're apologizing. And afterwards, everything went well. I'm sorry I do this. And we always making some kind of apology because we always feel that we have to fit into everybody's mold. Why can't we agree that that person has been saying yes, but underneath there's a lot of emotion that you do not see? So we have to see by asking questions.
Thanks, Doc.
Anybody else?
So we now open the floor for questions. You can just raise your hand or unmute and ask away.
Ooh, you see silence. It's not we have practiced so long.
Well, here, Sila Kisoon Singh from Rotary Club Paramaribo Residence, Suriname. I want to congratulate Mr. Kenneth Niles for his presentation. It really makes sense. I'm a clinical neuropsychologist myself. I'm a lecturer at the medical school, University of Suriname, and I have a practice myself. And there is a lot I recognize in the patients and the people. In Suriname, suicide is the first is on the first degree for youth. We know the youngsters, they dying at young age in accidents, in car accidents. You know, they like to ride their motors very at high speed and so on. But suicide is at the highest rate for youngsters, and Suriname is on the 6th place internationally for suicide. So in this year of mental health, and especially for Rotary, that we choose this year too for the year of mental health, it's we have a lot of activities too about mental health. We ourselves are going now to some schools and other places just to tell people about what is mental health, what is stress, how it leads to mental health, and what can we do for our well-being. Because everybody is focusing on health, but we neglect many times mental health. And you, Professor, you put some key points. What's mental health and how we can recognize this. Thank you very much.
Yes. I see we have a question here, Leah. What are some things we can say or do to support our loved ones with suicide ideation? First of all, how to recognize, you have to recognize they have suicide ideation. So therefore, in talking with them, you have to hear exactly the things that makes them want to do this. And then you can befriend. Because we deal with self-assurance, we dealing with acceptance here, we dealing with I could work in a space, and so therefore the things you could do is give 11 hugs a day, let that person know they matter, take them and commend rather than attack, encourage instead of be more commendable rather than criticizing. And we have to learn how to change language from negative to positive. You know, and that is things you can start to do. I see a hand from Mr. Jean-Marie from St.
Yes,
Lucia.
thank you. I'd love to type the question, but since I'm here now, yeah. What I was asking is, especially in St. Lucia at least, the cost of therapy is not super affordable. In fact, it's fairly expensive. And I feel like the people who need it the most are those who have the least access to it. What advice or suggestions, or what could be a potential way forward to alleviate that problem? And are those services, I guess there's some in-school services for children and whatnot, but there are some cheaper services. Would you say they're at the same level as those expensive services that are offered?
I could easily say initially that next question, Because this is a question, even in my region, as a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists, we have been laboring. I'm in a group, let me start backwards. I'm in a group, having done traumatology, I'm in a group of traumatologists, and what we have done is to afford the public 4 to 5 sessions free. Anything thereafter you pay. Now, of course, we know that it takes about 4 to 5 sessions basically to regularize and to give you some kind of resilience. So most times nobody comes back to get the 6th and 7th. But we do this on a basis, and we are open to the public, and we have a number. And so therefore, we do this pro bono, and we do get clients calling in. That is a way that some people need to know that we need to give back to our society. When it comes to association, this association could also agree that for particular either income brackets or people of certain social standards, we can also give discounted prices. What I do as a practitioner, some people come to me and I would, at the end, they come and they start talking money. I said, hold on, let's talk money after. So after the first session, I sit with you, find out what can you afford. If you can afford my full fee, fine. If you can't, what can you afford? Because I don't want you to go out there and say, you're well by Dr. Nice and he couldn't, I can't pay. And then next thing you know, people say, hey, he went by, he's like, oh, you know, he dead. Hold on. So I usually come to a compromise of what fee. And then sometimes they don't go down too low. And I will say, maybe cut it by half or 70% off. But it's up to the psychology. But I agree with you. That question is something that needs to be addressed. And maybe like Rotary, if we wish to have in each country, if we can select a few psychologists who say, okay, once you come through, once you are recommended by Rotarian or by Rotary Club, we will either do it pro bono or the Rotary Club can pay the fee. If that's something we can do, you know. So that those are things we could discuss from the, well, not for me, for the DG level and his shares and see what could happen. But these are things that could be ongoing. It is a very needed commodity and intervention. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
We have a question from Digby Amway.
Yes, thank you very much, Digby Amway, St. Lucia. I don't know where to start here, but I'm happy for this discussion as it has hit my household. And it started, well, I don't want to be too long about it, but our handyman, I noticed he always was talking to my wife or myself, and then he was telling the other people with whom he worked that he ain't going to work, he's going to school. And then, you know, they asked, what is the guy talking about coming to school? No, because he always had questions to ask. He was asking questions, and we took time to explain to him what's in him. And then subsequently, from talking with him, I realized that he was a recovering drug addict, and I thought he was pretty well clean and so on. And he started, I started getting him to set up himself a business and so on. He started spending, investing in transport because he wanted to do handiwork around and so on and so forth. But then he wouldn't leave after work. He would want to stay and talk. And it didn't hit me that maybe he didn't want to go home. But then he used to bring his daughter here, and she would be playing around, and then he would take her home. But then one morning, the telephone rang. And it was my help caretaker, my caregiver, who said, "You're sitting down or you're standing up? XYZ is dead." I said, "They must make those kind of joke." I said, "Yes, he committed suicide." And I started feeling guilty. because I think I was not seeing through certain things.
May I interject you? Is it that you did not see certain things, or is it that you saw and didn't know how to articulate, how to
I think it's
ask
both.
the question?
No, that's a good answer. The thing is that we in Rotary have in St. Louis, our club, something called after meeting. And that's where you really have discussion and new things are brought up and so on and so forth. And I had raised that before because I had another situation from a relative in the United Kingdom who had some problem and something not quite the same. And it hurt me, it worried me, because her brother is also a medical doctor, and it split all of us. But to come back to the point here is that I raised it, and in our club, it was thought, oh no, we can't handle that. And one of the things that one member actually said to me, that is not for our Rotary thing, that is a government thing. And to the point where I got very annoyed at one point, I was about to resign. But looking back now, my question is, what signs maybe I should have picked up, or what I could have done, having raised it and saw it happening in St. Lucia. Before it came to my house, there was about 4 weekends. Every weekend there was a suicide. I don't know if you remember that, Everest. At one point in St. Lucia, there was an awful lot of suicide. But for this particular one, I'm still asking the question, what maybe I had been missing? What could I have done to have alleviated this problem? The suicide of this guy.
Let me say from now that you were never trained to look out for suicide ideation. As I said earlier on in the presentation, it is a topic we do not discuss. As I said, I can come back another time and look at that slide I showed you, how to assess, how to establish weaknesses and intent. It has to do with relationships. How much do you want to expose yourself to that person, and how much you want that person to expose himself to you? So that when I casually come into your sphere, okay, let me interrupt here. When we go to a doctor, sometimes the doctor says to you, so tell me what's happening, these symptoms. And we struggle sometimes to tell the doctor what is happening with us. But I had a headache yesterday. You know, 2 days ago I had a bad feeling. We do not take account of every emotion and thought that we have during the day. We live by rote. By recall, we get up and we do things, we do have to think twice. So that in assessing abnormalities or assessing diverse behaviors, sometimes we just say, something wrong with you, or we have the adages, look, you crazy, yes? Well, we're stupid or what? Not realizing we need not say things like you crazy or stupid or what. We just say, so why are you behaving this way? What it is that makes you put that on? I asked a lady once, why you have on that wig? And she watched me. She said, see, mister, why you ask that question? I say, because the wig is looking bad. And I don't think you could, she said, you see, the way I feel like a wet fall right now. And she started to talk of her day. She just dragged on the wig and come out of the house. And I just sat down there and listened. She was at the brink of what you would call a nervous breakdown. She was having a psychosis. And she just dragged. Now, you would say, Kenneth, you are bold and brave. We need to, when we see people come out sometimes in 2-sided socks or 2-sided shoes, ask them what's going on. Or sometimes you might find somebody drinking a little too much. Tell me. I see you pouring those tequilas too. So should you be doing this? You see me right now? I try to cool my brain. Once you hear that this is the wrong way to cool brain. Can we become aggressive? May I use that word? Which is the wrong word. The right word is assertive. Can we be assertive? Now, in your case, Mr. Aubrey, you were entertaining conversation without analyzing the conversations, maybe. So the gentleman will come and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. But are we getting down to questions and answers, trying to improve the communication and to get some more knowledge of who the person is? So these are ways in which we can really begin, not just as the question came earlier, not just to hear I am doing well, but to see if the person is doing well. And that is important as we go along. Next.
So we have a question from our question and answer box, and
yeah,
it's if you are currently helping someone with suicidal thoughts and they become codependent on you to be there for them daily, but sometimes it's hard for you because of work constraints. How do you help them become independent or talk to a therapist?
1 second. You have some bright people on this platform here, DG. Some very bright people. And I was hoping that question did come in because codependency is something we discussed up to in my last meeting with I meet with my colleagues once a month. I was discussing this issue of codependency because it has some clients who don't want to leave your practice. I have a lady I said, hey, how long you coming here? 8 months. What it is? Hold on. Codependency. You feel you cannot work. So what we have, and the thing about it, we are trained after 6 or 7 sessions how to detox and to help this person to become self-dependent. But some people are afraid to go there. So what you need to do is to get somebody, send them to a psychologist. Then the psychologist know that they're coming there to find a level of dependence because you may not have the skills. And I can't teach you the skills right now to get to that, how to become dependent. Now, one of the key things you could do, you must be able to give instruction without giving directives. Is that English? Yes. So you could say, could you do this for me without telling them how to do it? And when they say to you, what should I do? You say to them, you do, I am here. And you go do what you have to do. Allow them to begin to define their own abilities without you hovering. Remember, we had that somewhere on the slide, that hovering mentality. So sometimes you find that you may even be afraid to let them go, lest something will happen. But that is a risk you have to take in breaking that codependency, because you do not want them to be. They will never become self-aware, and it will be easy for them to have another ideation. Because at some point in time, when you show them a sign of disappointment, they will crack again immediately, unfortunately, and fall away. Because their dependency, dependency is just not there, you being there. The dependency is that you applaud them, you commend them, you help them, you make them laugh. And the minute you slip and say something negative, they're going back for a tablet. And I've had that once. I mean, the person's alive, 3 attempts, and the person's still alive and still working out codependency. But not with me, with themselves. I'm far off, but occasionally we will meet, but I'm helping. Excellent question.
Thanks, Dr. Niles. Do we have any more questions from the floor? If not, I will hand back over to our host.
Do you really not want to ask a question? Anybody got any triggers tonight of sad feelings? I know you might not want to see it, but please, if you do, get some help before the end of the week. Okay. Demerara. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Abe, back over to you.
Fantastic, and thanks, Dr. Niles. Very insightful presentation, I must say. All right, right, as we come to the end of such a wonderful session this evening, I'll now ask our district trainer, Leah, to close us off. Leah?
Thanks so much, AB. Thanks to AG Kenneth. When I reached out to him about this seminar, he immediately said yes. As a matter of fact, when we discussed it at our committee meeting, he was the first name that was suggested. We had a couple of others, but I didn't even get to go to them because as soon as I reached out to him, immediately he came on board and said yes, yes, yes. And he has lived up to his hype, and there was some hype surrounding him in the committee meeting. So we are truly grateful to him for taking this time out and sharing with us on this somewhat taboo topic, but I hope for all of our sakes, we realize the importance of bringing it more to the forefront and making it more of a general topic that we have on a daily, if not on a daily basis, at least on a more regular basis. Thank you, of course, to our supportive DG, who is always here with us. Thank him for our opening remarks. And to the team, the District Learning Committee, who are always there to support, whether in person, virtually, doing everything behind the scenes. We couldn't have our training sessions without them. And lastly, thank you, all of our attendees. Without you, it would just be us talking to ourselves. So we definitely, truly appreciate you. Look out for our next session. We also have a short video coming up next month. We'll take a break for December and we'll return in January for our next virtual training session. Have a wonderful evening to all and take care.